All right. Hey, everybody. It's Carlos Immortals Inc. Podcast. As always, I have Mikey over there on the keyboards.
What's up?
And then we brought back Amanda.
Hi.
Hi. We're going to talk about some vampire. I know we covered this 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Pre-Mikey era.
Yeah, pre-Mikey era. Because, he was just a dumb kid.
Just a dummy.
But Amanda's really into the World of Darkness. She covered us with Werewolf and Hunter. Did we talk about Hunter?
I have not done Hunter yet, but
I think
it's on
I
my
talked
list.
about Hunter.
Yeah, we talked about Hunter on here before once. I was on that podcast with you.
Yeah.
And we could always go back and recover it.
Kids on bikes, too. That's what you were big
Yeah,
on.
Kids on Bikes is my other thing.
And then, so I figured, well, come on in. We'll talk about the vampire. I got to restock it currently at the time of this podcast because it's sold out. So
Really?
And Halloween's coming up. So
You have to restock it.
I know. I have to find it. Do you hear that? Distributors?
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are out of it. So.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade. Go, Amanda.
All right. So as I mentioned last time, I've done World of Darkness for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw this at your shop, I was really excited because I wanted something new and a continuation. So for After the Apocalypse, super excited.
So this vampire book is after the apocalypse.
I'm gathering that
Oh, okay.
based on the fact that they include the Thin Bloods, which is the 13th and 14th generation, which in previous iterations of Vampire the Masquerade were not playable unless you played it as a flaw and you didn't get anything really cool in order to be a Thin Blood.
So Thin Blood's basically, when you say 13th or 14th generation, you're talking about like basically in the game, it's the original vampires, and then the second generation is the ones they created, third, fourth, fifth.
Yes.
So 13th, 14th are extremely watered down, is what
Yes.
you're saying, and have no basically affiliation, is what I'm getting at. Like they don't have like a strong clan connection. I guess.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so in the case of this new version, they fleshed them out. And that part of the problem with the world now after the apocalypse is that these exist in high numbers. And so when you run into a Thin Blood, they don't have the traditional disciplines. They have more of like a blood alchemy or a ritual path. So one of the main things I noticed with this is that Tremere also got kind of watered down. And
Tremere's the ones who are
do blood magic.
the magicians.
Yes.
Sounds scary.
And they used to have a variety of paths. And in turn, some of those paths now are blood alchemy for the Thin Bloods,
okay.
like movement of mind, where they can move things with their mind, including flight.
Ooh.
So that's one of the new facets that they added. The original clans are still there. You got Ventru, Bruja, Gangrel, Malkavian, Nosferatu, Toreador, and Tremere.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the other side, the bad guys like Lasombra and everything. But they're not really covered in this original book other than, hey, these are the baddies. The main thing was the Thin Bloods. That's what the major addition was.
Okay, yeah, I see. That would be for new players, because I could see where if you were trying to play this vampire game and you wanted to get into all those clans you said, unless you were into it, you're like, oh, that's too much. Like you say, blood magic and all this kind of scares. But I think Thin Bloods are like people like, I would akin it to anybody who becomes a new vampire. Like they always have movies where somebody's a vampire and they just turned it and they got to figure out their way, and that would be a Thin Blood, right? Because they're just kind of got
Technically,
turned.
yes, and technically no, because there is another clan. They're the clan list called Caitiff or Caitiff, depending on who you are. And those are generally your accidental embraces or people who don't know who their sire is.
But those are in here too. Right?
They are in there.
They're flushed out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's probably where I could see where that's where they would go with this book, to like bring in, as far, and I'm looking for marketing, like to bring in like the Twilights and the and the stuff like that.
Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunters.
Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Well,
even Abraham Lincoln would probably be that would be old school with the clans, and they're very set in their ways. But yeah, I think more like Twilight.
Have you seen that movie, Amanda?
yes, I've seen Twilight, and they more blatantly ripped off of VTM than Underworld did.
Yeah.
No,
Never
have you seen
faced it.
Have you seen Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
I have seen that as well.
That's better than Twilight.
I don't know. He's so,
But I
he's so
have
stuck on that
seen-
movie.
I have seen the Twilight though. I have. I'm not
down.
proud, but I have seen it.
Yes.
Additionally, they did change some of the powers. So some of the powers did get combined. Like obfuscate and chemistry and parts of Quietus, which was an Assamite power, are all now merged into one power. They
Right.
took pieces of them and mushed them.
Well, that lost me already. I don't know what any of that is.
Obfuscate is the
No,
ability
I-
to go invisible
Yeah.
or hide things, change your appearance. Chemistry is illusions. And then Quietus was the Assamite gift, and it had the ability to turn off sound. And they took that piece out of Quietus and pushed it into Obfuscate.
I wonder why they combined them all. Like,
Was it a
why?
game mechanic?
I think it's a game mechanic.
Okay.
Like they condensed it to make it easier. But
I could see where that could be overpowered. You put all that together in one place. Like
Yeah.
extremely overpowered.
considering if you look at like elder levels of Obfuscate, for really old vampires, you can technically make the world forget you ever existed. So it's already
I mean,
kind of
that's-
powerful.
Yeah, I kind of see where that would be a good storytelling because that's what you'd want. But yeah, I could see as a player that would make, if you combined all three, you can't see you, forget about you, can't hear you. I mean,
You're like,
do anything
what?
you wanted then.
Perfect assassin.
Yeah, so
Yeah, like why combine? It's
maybe
like,
overpowered. I could see where they would get away from that because I mean they've had plenty of additions to, pick and choose, and then you don't want to give a new player all that ability. They min-max players.
Yeah.
You give them a half blood and you give them all that, and then
Now,
you got Blade.
the inverse of that, where you
Right.
crunch a bunch of things together, then they took thaumaturgy from Tremere, and now there is only one blood magic path.
So explain that word.
It's blood magic.
Okay.
And so they use blood to do rituals, which is what it primarily has turned into now. It used to be you spend blood to do different things like use lightning, the movement of mind I had mentioned, lure of flames, which was lighting things on fire. They were the Swiss Army knives of vampire, is what Tremere was. They're my favorites, of course.
When
Yeah.
you say blood magic, is it your blood or somebody else's?
It's your own.
Yeah. Okay.
And
And you have to replace that because it powers you down, right? Okay.
yes, and Path of Blood, which is the only one they retained, is where they can up or reduce their blood potency and do a few tricks, but it's with their own blood and it's not really combative until they use the rituals.
and until the anemia kicks in, right?
Well, yeah, until the anemia kicks in. There was some new enhanced features that I noticed that also have carried over, as I mentioned in Werewolf, the relationship diagram, where you list who's in your group and who's not in your group and how you're friends or not friends. And they go deep into that and how you hunt, which were things that were really glazed over when you played in the past.
I do remember there was a lot in this book about that. And I remember there's a whole part of that. But go ahead.
Like predator types, they added that. So if you're somebody who is on the darker side of vampire, you have some peculiar feeding habits on humans
Yeah.
and preferences. But you could also be kind of a fuzzy, fluffy vampire and you feed off of animals instead.
I do remember there was a lot of, I guess I would add a lot of the backstory of how you function in society, I guess, and everything else. Because I guess even when this was originally written in the 80s, you didn't have cell phones. Like cell phones and cameras changed everything. And so you would have to adapt with the times as far as even the game mechanics of it, so.
The game mechanics that were
Well, as far
added
as,
for
like, the-
cell phones in the LARP version, at least for sure, I know that.
Oh.
Where you might not be able to be picked up on a standard camera, like video cameras could pick you up. And so there was always somebody trying to go collect all the tapes or delete the hard drives. It was like the thing to do. Another thing I noticed that they did was blood bonds versus coterie. So they used to be the same thing. If you had a blood bond to somebody or did the Voldery, which is a group blood bond, which makes vampires loyal to each other. And there used to be like a coterie rating and all of that. Instead, coterie is now your relationships and different types of relationships, and they brand your relationships. So it doesn't have to include a blood bond. So you could just have some guys you're really good friends with for a reason.
Okay.
You're my
There's no-
friend. We don't
Yeah,
need
you're
your
not like-
blood.
There's okay.
The blood bond would actually make it so you can't defy.
Yeah, I was going to say, because like it seems like I could see where that would be different. Like, hey, we're friends, but I can still do my own thing and not worry about what happens to you, or whatever effects it might have on you. With a blood bond, if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I played, but if I remember right, you actually had bad things happen to you if you broke the blood bond, or people would come looking for you. All that
And
happiness.
you could actually get yourself into trouble if you're trying to defy your group. If you had a blood bond, one particular instance for me, I played a Malkavian. I was Prince of the City, and one of the people I was in a blood bond with, I was doing something and they told me to stop, and I could not stop myself from stopping. So everybody knew after that I had a blood bond, and so everything was called into question, my leadership. So it has so many things that can be positive or negative. The loyalty thing is great because you have a little bit of that in the clan of Tremere, where they're bloodbound to each other or bloodbound to the council. But when you have somebody in a leadership position that's bloodbound, it's frowned upon.
Yeah, and I could see and I'm looking at the role play aspect of it, like you were talking about. You couldn't stop, like nobody knew but you and that other person that in the role playing game that you were blood bond, so that you were allies basically, and nobody else knew that. Well, once that happened, then everybody knew. So that like you said, it changes dynamics. And in role playing, that's pretty cool because it's not just combat. That's what I like about this game. It's always been the political aspect, or the backstabbing, or the behind the scenes stuff that it's kind of cool in players and stuff like that. So
Yeah, all the rules are still there for how you have to conduct yourself as a vampire, the path of humanity. They've modified how that works versus the past. It's driven by ambition, touchstones, which is your connections to humans, and then conviction, your connections to your past. So kind of your religious vampire beliefs that keep you on the straight and narrow.
yeah,
So that all stayed.
it almost seemed like this was written more for the 13th, 14th generation, like the old, and to make a character in that generation. And
Yeah.
the old ones were, that's the other edition. So
Well, I think that, as I had mentioned with the werewolf book, that one was very clear that it was its own thing. And that,
it changed.
It referenced the past, but it said, this is a reimagining. This one wasn't very clear with that. It's kind of like you're assuming it's going to be Vampire the Masquerade, as it always has been. And in some cases, it comes off like the weird cousin. And it's not bad, but if you're not expecting it to be different, then you're like, what happened? This was my favorite group. Now they're different. I don't like it. And at first, that's how I felt. And then I read it again, and I said, you know what? I'm going to look at this differently and give it a chance. And there is some really good content in there and some good concepts. In fact, the front of the book, where it kind of gives like a hunter's view, which I thought was weird at first, a hunter's view of vampires and their classifications and their weaknesses. It's all in there, and it looks kind of like an FBI file.
Yeah.
And I really liked that because it was very thematic. And so that was very impressive. And when I looked at it that way, I was less disappointed. And I said, okay, I'm going to not think of it as what I did for the last 13 years. What will I do with this? And so that's why I want to give it a shot and run it here at the shop, so that way people could also give it a chance.
All right. Yeah, it would be cool.
Yep.
When are you looking to run it at the shop?
I'm looking at around October 21st.
Okay.
So I'm going to get a hold of Diane and see
Yeah,
what we
get
can
a hold
do.
of Diane because I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'll see what availability's out there.
When does he?
I just have to I have a wedding coming up for a friend, so I got to schedule around that. But yeah, I do want to get this
whenever,
around
it's easy.
Halloween, so that way, because that's everybody's
I think
time to be vampires.
Yeah.
A lot of people
perfect.
are interested in it, and I know a lot of people like the books and they read them and the background, but to actually play it is harder to find a group, So, and then plus you don't know how to run it. So if you played where someone was running it correctly, or at least good, then it's easier to start a game like that. So I'm sure we'll post it on the events and everything like that. But so what you're saying in a synopsis is like basically it's vampire, kind of like what they did with werewolf. Hey, this is kind of a reimagining. They changed some things to make it more up to date.
Yes.
And maybe bring in new players is what I'm getting. That's from
Yes.
a marketing part of it. So, but it's still well written. I like the way it was written.
I do too.
It's all in there. It's a classic vampire writing of dark and foreboding, and it's a terrible place, and life goes on. So.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. It's just, if you look at it, if you played vampire in the past and you don't realize it's something different, you're going to have a hang up on it.
Oh, okay.
Because you're going to be like, but my favorite group isn't what they were. What they are, they've just been changed so that way the players can, one, more easily relate to them. When they wrote the descriptions for the clans, it comes off more as, if I'm this guy, how do I live? Even though I'm undead, but how do I live undead?
Yeah.
How do I live undead?
Yes.
And
So it's more kind of a point of view change. And if you look at it that way, it's very well done.
Or if you've never picked it up before, you can just
Yeah.
enjoy it as it is.
You can just enjoy it and have a great time.
Yeah. So, all right, cool. All right. Well, like you said, we're going to probably be, October should probably be running this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, well, it's going to be available as soon as I restock it. And, but it usually is this is a standard game I keep on the shelves. So, well, thanks for coming in, Amanda.
Thank you.
And, if you like what you saw, give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Yep.
Mikey's going to put it in the description. And,
Check our Facebook for Vampire the Masquerade happening here sometime in October, like you said.
Yep.
mhm.
And thank you guys for watching.
Later.